cinematography can be an incredible part of the narrative when it's done well. Here I want to share a few shows whose cinematography that I love and whose cinematography style inspires me in the work that I do today. I would highly recommend checking these shows out, if not at least for the cinematography, to understand how rules can be bent and broken, which is something I love to do. The first show, and probably top of my list when it comes to cinematography, is Mr. Robot. The cinematography of Mr. Robot blows me away till today. It's probably the most fascinating and interesting and daring cinematography I've seen from any form of media, be it film or TV. The constant use of off-center framing and the use of negative space draws you into this world in such a way where it's uncomfortable, where it consistently gives you a sense of paranoia, which is also essential to the story, to Elliot's mind and the way he looks at the world. Every single episode just seems like it's looking to find new ways to break the rules which we are used to when it comes to cinematography and especially framing. The constant phenomenal use of lighting and negative space consistently tell a story in and of itself. There is nothing that I can say that will adequately pay tribute and give Mr. Robot its due when it comes to its cinematography. So all I can tell you to do is go and watch it. It's phenomenal. The second show whose cinematography inspires me is Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul's cinematography is nothing short of outstanding. Much like Breaking Bad, the idea is to treat those slow, quiet moments, those dull moments, in a very loud way. Those two shows are essentially about the mundanity of life. It's about how mundane life can actually be. Everything from the setting of New Mexico, to the characters, to the way they look, to the way they dress, to the way they act, to even the gangsters that are featured on the show. The whole world is constructed to be a very realistic, almost too realistic, mundane way of life. And that's what's so fascinating about it. What both shows do, but especially I would say Better Call Saul, is ensure that even the most mundane of moments is captured in an incredible way. Every single frame in the show is a painting, and it's done through framing and through lighting. Every single visual choice tells a story of its own, especially the use of light and shadow on people's faces. You can see the consistent moral complexity of these characters just through use of light and shadow. This kind of precision reminds me that I need to be precise in my own work, and reminds me that even in the most mundane of circumstances, you can still make a frame look beautiful. Another show whose cinematography I absolutely love, and actually my favorite show of all time, is Lost. Now, Lost is not a show that I ever kind of associated with phenomenal cinematography, even though I knew it looked good. It was only upon rewatching it recently and seeing just how amazing it looks, while it still looks like $1 billion till today, I realized just how good the cinematography is. Of course, it's shot on 35mm film, and it's shot in Hawaii. It's consistently shot at golden hour when the sun is low. It's consistently backlit with the sun. You have those lush colors of the jungle. You have those intense close-ups of characters in their emotional moments, who are played by phenomenal actors. There's a certain intimacy to it. There's a certain deep love to those images. And even though when we think about Lost, we usually think about the characters, we think about the music, I think what's so great about the cinematography is that it remains somewhat hidden. It's not like Better Call Saul, where it's so obviously beautiful. The beauty of the frame is presented to you in such a way where it looks natural, but it still looks beautiful. And I think that's what's so impactful about it. So I'm not trying to call Lost cinematography simple, it's anything but simple, but I think the point is that not every frame needs to look like a painting, like in, for example, Mr. Robot or Better Call Saul, but rather sometimes it's in hiding why the frame is so beautiful. It's in hiding where the lighting is coming from, for example. It's in sucking in the audience to the moment where they forget what they're looking at and they're just completely transported into that world where you find phenomenal cinematography. And that is a philosophy that you can also replicate in your own work. Another show whose cinematography I love, and a show that I just love generally, is Top Boy. Now, Top Boy is a show that when you think about it, when you discuss it, you remember the dialect, you remember the dialogue, you remember the gritty street life, or the gritty street life if you want to lose your T's. But I think one thing that I always loved about Top Boy was those moments of beauty in the show. Those moments where the characters show that they're actually a tragedy more so than morally ambiguous. That they are a product of their environment, they're a product of where they grew up, and as a result they've been pushed toward making the decisions that they made. What I also love most about Top Boy is how they've utilized the tight spaces that they've been given to work with. A lot of the scenes take place in flats, in apartments, in tight spaces. Despite that, the camera finds ways to still be interesting. The camera still finds ways to paint an inviting image. The camera finds ways to be claustrophobic. The camera finds ways to highlight the anger of the individuals, the pain of the individuals, and it is a very painful world. Gritty is a very easy term to use, but it's also a very oppressive atmosphere. That's what the cinematography paints to you, almost like a prison. The show uses a lot of natural light and hides the lighting very well, of course, but it still manages to reflect that London vibe, that greyness of the skies, that grittiness of the day-to-day life, and specifically of the working class. I think if I ever wanted to find a way to reflect the vibe of the atmosphere in which I grew up in, vibe meaning the way the streets sounded, the way they felt, the way they looked, I think the cinematography of Top Boy is a perfect reflection of that. And the last show whose cinematography I want to highlight, even though there are many more to discuss, is Atlanta. I think anyone who loves filmmaking, anyone who loves cinematography knows Atlanta, has seen Atlanta at least once, if not twice, if not more times, and is astounded by its cinematography. It's very similar to Mr. Robot in the way that it continuously seeks to find ways to break rules. Every episode feels like a surreal experiment. It feels like a dream. There is a continuous sense of abstractness when it comes to the visuals. Every episode is a constant reinvention. Even though on paper it seems like it will be a show with quite clean but gritty cinematography, almost like in Top Boy, the show rather leans toward this kind of abstractness. Again, this refusal to frame things in the way that you expect them to be framed. The line between real and imagination is constantly blurred. You can't tell what's real, you can't tell what's a figment of someone's mind. You can't tell if some episodes are meant to take place in the real world, while other episodes are meant to take place in people's imaginations. And the cinematography continuously reflects that. And it also reflects this location very well, with any scenes being shot outside consistently taking place at golden hour against the backdrop of forests, which give off that kind of Atlanta state vibe. I can tell you for sure that if I ever was to build up the courage to finally make a short film, narrative film, or even make another passion project of my own, I would definitely look toward Atlanta for inspiration when it comes to cinematography. So those were just a handful of shows. There are many shows that I can mention. The Crown, Peaky Blinders come to mind. But I think it's always important to look toward movies, TV shows, documentaries, commercials for points of reference and inspiration. Just remember that every visual language you're looking to achieve has been done before in some way. And we're very lucky to have an endless amount of resources to go toward. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.